Let's get right into it. Number 10. The Brazen Bull. Imagine being so good at your job that it literally kills you. That's what happened to Perilos of Athens, probably the unluckiest inventor in history. Back in 560 BC, Perilos had what he thought was a brilliant idea for a new execution device. He designed this massive hollow bull made of bronze. But this wasn't just any metal cow. This was basically the world's most horrifying slow cooker. The bull was designed with a door on the side where you'd stuff the unlucky victim inside. Then they'd light a fire under the bull. Perilos installed these special acoustic tubes inside the bull's head. These tubes would turn the victim's screams into sounds like an angry bull roaring. So Perilos takes his invention to Phalaris, the tyrant of Agrigentum, probably thinking he's about to get a fat paycheck. Phalaris seems impressed and asks Perilos to demonstrate how the acoustics work. Perilos, probably feeling pretty proud of himself, climbs inside to show off his sound system. That's when Phalaris decided to do a full test run. He ordered his guards to light the fire. Turns out the acoustics were a complete success. A fatally complete success. The guards pulled Perilos out before he could fully cook, just so Phalaris could throw him off a cliff instead. Phalaris loved the bull so much he kept using it on other people. Years later, when a new ruler took over, Phalaris himself got cooked in the bull. Number 9. Thomas Midgley Jr.'s assistance harness. Imagine inventing something to help you get out of bed, and that same invention decides to help you leave this world entirely. That's exactly what happened to Thomas Midgley Jr. Midgley was the guy who put lead in gasoline and invented CFCs, the chemicals that later created a hole in the ozone layer. Some historians actually call him the single organism who had the most negative impact on Earth's environment. But that's not what killed him. In 1940, Midgley got polio and lost the ability to walk. Being an inventor, he decided to create something to help him get in and out of bed. So he designed this elaborate system of ropes and pulleys. Think of it like a DIY crane that would lift him up and help him move around. The system worked perfectly, maybe a little too perfectly. One morning in 1944, Midgley was found tangled in his own invention, strangled by the very ropes meant to help him move. The man who accidentally poisoned the planet with his successful inventions was ultimately killed by his next big idea, just not in the way he planned. Number 8. Sylvester H. Roper's steam velocipede. This guy basically invented one of the world's first motorcycles, except it ran on steam instead of gas. It was a bicycle with a tiny steam engine strapped to it, but this thing was a complete success. A fatally complete success. Roper was 73 years old when he decided to show off his creation at a bicycle track in Cambridge, Massachusetts. He wasn't just puttering around either. He was hitting speeds of 40 miles per hour. That might not sound impressive today, but in 1896, that was absolutely insane. Most horses couldn't even go that fast. Witnesses said he was flying around the track, passing every bicycle racer there like they were standing still. Then something went wrong. People watched as Roper's machine started wobbling. The bike veered to the right, then crashed. When people reached him, Roper was already gone. Doctors said he actually died before the crash. His heart gave out from the excitement and speed. The machine performed just as he'd planned. It went fast. Really fast. So fast that his 73-year-old heart couldn't handle the thrill of his own creation. He was probably the first person in history to die from motorcycle-related excitement. His steam velocipede still exists today. It's sitting in the Smithsonian. Number 7. Georg Richmann's fatal spark. Georg Richmann was a Russian scientist who in 1753 looked at Benjamin Franklin's famous kite experiment and thought it wasn't dangerous enough. So he built what he called a thunder conductor, a giant metal rod designed to attract and measure lightning. Franklin got lucky with his experiment because the lightning that hit his kite was pretty weak, but Richmann wanted the real deal. He set up his device on the roof of his house in St. Petersburg, ran a wire down to his lab, and waited for a storm. During a thunderstorm, Richmann invited his friend, an engraver named Sokolov, to watch his invention in action. The two stood in a room, staring at a metal rod, while a thunderstorm raged outside. Suddenly, a massive blue ball of lightning shot down the wire and hit Richmann right in the forehead. Sokolov got knocked out cold but survived. He later drew a picture of the whole thing. Richmann's device worked exactly as designed. It just worked a little too well. Scientists later figured out that if Richmann had just stood about a foot further away, he would have lived to write his own research paper. Instead, he became the first person in history to die while doing electrical experiments. Number 6. The paint that glowed until the end. Imagine you're sitting in your dark bedroom right now, looking at your watch. The hands of your watch are glowing a soft green in the darkness. Well, you can thank Sabin Arnold von Sakaki for that, and he paid for it with his life. Back in 1917, Sochaki invented something called Undark, a paint that could glow in the dark. This wasn't your regular dollar store glow paint that dies after 10 minutes. This stuff kept glowing for years because it contained something special: radium. Yes, that radioactive stuff that Marie Curie discovered. Sochaki's paint was a massive hit, especially for watch dials during World War I. Soldiers needed to read their watches in the dark trenches, and Undark made that possible. The company hired hundreds of young women to paint watch dials with tiny brushes. These radium girls were told to point their brushes with their lips between strokes. Yeah, they were literally putting radioactive paint in their mouths. But here's the dark irony. Sochaki knew exactly what he was working with. He was a doctor and a scientist who understood radiation. He even wore lead-lined aprons while working with radium, but it wasn't enough. Year after year, the radiation slowly poisoned him. His bones started to crumble from the inside out. His teeth fell out. His body was basically falling apart while he was still alive. In 1928, he finally admitted what was happening to him. He told a reporter, "I am dying. My invention is killing me." He died shortly after. His body so radioactive they had to bury him in a lead-lined coffin. The really messed up part is his invention worked perfectly. The paint glowed exactly as intended, probably still glowing in his bones as they lowered him into the ground. Number 5. The Speed Demon's Final Lap. In 1932, Fred Duesenberg had just built what many consider the fastest and most powerful car of its time. The Duesenberg was basically the Tesla of the 1930s, if Tesla made cars that could outrun airplanes. These machines were so powerful that owning one was like having a pet tiger. Impressive, but likely to kill you if you weren't careful. His cars were the choice of movie stars, mobsters, and anyone else who had more money than common sense. That July, Fred was driving his latest model on a wet Pennsylvania highway. The car did exactly what it was designed to do. It responded to every input with raw, unfiltered power. It responded with so much power, it went right into a high-speed flip that would eventually claim Fred's life. It's like building the perfect mousetrap, only to have it snap shut on your own fingers. Even after Fred's death, Duesenberg cars became even more popular. It was like his fatal accident was a 5-star review written in the most permanent way possible. So next time someone says it's a doozy, they're referencing a car so perfect it killed its own creator. Number 4. Franz Reichelt's parachute suit. In 1912, a tailor named Franz Reichelt had a dream: to invent a suit that would allow pilots to safely parachute from a falling plane. He basically created a giant wearable parachute, a coat that concealed a massive canopy of silk. He called it the parachute suit. On February 4th, he decided it was time for the ultimate public demonstration. He climbed to the first deck of the Eiffel Tower, about 187 feet up. A massive crowd and a film crew gathered below to watch. His friends begged him not to do it, to use a dummy instead. But Reichelt was confident. He told them he was going to test it himself, without any tricks. He stood on the ledge, a small, determined figure against the Paris sky. He hesitated for about 40 seconds, then he jumped. His invention worked perfectly. The parachute unfurled from his suit exactly as he designed it to. There was just one problem. It didn't have enough time or altitude to fully open and catch the air. Instead of gliding gently down, the half-deployed parachute wrapped around him, and he plummeted like a stone into the frozen ground below. The impact was so severe, it left a 5-inch deep crater in the earth. He was killed instantly. The camera crew captured the entire thing. Reichelt's suit had deployed flawlessly. The mechanism itself was a success, but the conditions he chose for his perfect test were fatally flawed. Number 3. Otto Lilienthal's gliders. Before the Wright brothers ever took to the skies, there was a man known as the Glider King, Otto Lilienthal. In the 1890s, this German pioneer was obsessed with flight, and he believed the best way to achieve it was to mimic birds. He built a series of beautiful, bird-like gliders, crafted from willow wood and cotton fabric, and they worked. Boy, did they work. Lilienthal made over 2,000 successful flights. He would run off the top of a hill and soar through the air, controlling his glider by shifting his body weight, just like a modern hang glider. Photos of him in midair are some of the most famous images in aviation history. He wasn't just an inventor. He was a pilot, proving that human flight was possible. He was basically the world's first airman. On August 9, 1896, Lilienthal went for another flight. He took off from a hill near Rhino, Germany. His glider was working perfectly, soaring gracefully as usual. Then a sudden, powerful gust of wind hit the glider. The glider did exactly what it was designed to do. It responded to the aerodynamic forces around it, but the force was too strong. It stalled, pitched forward, and Lilienthal plunged 50 feet to the ground. The fall broke his spine. His last words to his brother were reportedly, "Sacrifices must be made." He died the next day. His gliders worked perfectly, allowing him to fly when everyone thought it was impossible, but that same perfection meant they were slaves to the very laws of physics and gusts of wind, a vulnerability that ultimately cost him his life. Number 2. Horace Lawson Hunley's submarine. During the American Civil War, a marine engineer named Horace Lawson Hunley had a radical idea to break the Union's naval blockade. He decided to build a submarine. Remember, this is the 1860s. A submarine was basically a hand-cranked iron coffin. His third design, the H.L. Hunley, was his masterpiece. It was a 40-foot-long metal tube powered by a crew of 8 men turning a hand crank connected to a propeller. The submarine had already sunk once during testing, killing 5 crew members. But Hunley was determined. He thought he knew the machine better than anyone. On October 15, 1863, Hunley himself decided to take command of the vessel for another test run in Charleston Harbor. He and his 7 crewmen sealed themselves inside and submerged. The submarine worked perfectly. It dove underwater exactly as it was designed to do, and it stayed there. It never resurfaced. For over 130 years, the fate of the Hunley was a complete mystery. Then, in 1995, it was finally discovered at the bottom of the harbor. When they raised it and opened the hatch, they found the skeletons of Hunley and his crew still at their stations. Forensic analysis suggests Hunley may have accidentally hit the lever that controlled the diving fins, sending his perfect invention straight to the seabed, where it became his tomb. It submerged flawlessly, but it was so good at its job that it took its own inventor with it to the bottom. Number 1. Valerian Abakovsky's Aerowagon. Imagine being tasked with creating a high-speed train for the political elite, a machine to ferry Soviet officials across the country at breathtaking speeds. That was the job of Valerian Abakovsky, a 25-year-old Russian inventor. In 1921, he came up with the Aerowagon. It was essentially a rail car with a giant airplane engine and propellers strapped to the front. Think of it as a steampunk locomotive from a Mad Max movie. The idea was to create the fastest land vehicle in the world, and it was a complete success. An absolutely terrifyingly, fatally complete success. On its test run, the Aerowagon, with Abakovsky and a group of high-ranking Soviet officials on board, reached a blistering speed of 87 miles per hour. For 1921, this was an unimaginable speed for a train. The trip from Moscow to the city of Tula was a triumph. But there was a problem. The Aerowagon was designed to go fast in a straight line. The tracks it was on were not. On the return journey, while traveling at high speed, the Aerowagon hit a rough patch of track. The high speed and insane vibrations from the engine were too much for the rail car. It leaped off the tracks and crashed violently. Of the 22 people on board, 6 were killed instantly. One of them was the inventor himself, Valerian Abakovsky. He was killed by his own creation, which performed its function, going incredibly fast, so perfectly that it couldn't be contained by the infrastructure of its time. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.